Still in Country, a Vietnam War Memoir. Preface. When I sat down to write my memoir, I couldn't help but feel a surge of emotions. I'm a former Marine, a survivor of wars not just on the battlefield, but also of the personal battles that followed me home. Today, I find resilience and healing in sharing my journey through the memoir I penned, a project ignited by the love and encouragement of my wife, Brenda, and intended as a legacy for my son and grandchildren. As I began to write, I made the decision to change some people's names to protect their anonymity. There were stories that needed to be told, but I wanted to respect the privacy of those who were there with me. It was important to me to honor their experiences while sharing mine. I started at the beginning, recounting the day I had enlisted and the excitement and fear I had felt as I left home for the first time. I wrote about the grueling training and the camaraderie I had found with my fellow Marines. I wrote about the first time I had seen combat and the overwhelming sense of fear and adrenaline that had coursed through my veins. As I delved deeper into my memories, I found myself reliving the most difficult moments of life. I wrote about the friends I had lost, the injuries I had sustained, and the mental and emotional toll that war had taken on me. I wrote about the struggle to readjust to civilian life and the nightmares that still haunted me. But I also wrote about the moments of hope and resilience that had carried me through the darkest times. I wrote about the bonds I had formed with my fellow Marines, the moments of laughter and camaraderie that had sustained us in the face of adversity. I wrote about the love and support of my family and the determination to build a better future for myself and my loved ones. Finishing my memoir brought a sense of catharsis and a hope that my story would not only bridge the generational gap, but also inspire my family and others to meet their life's challenges with courage and determination. When I handed the final manuscript to Brenda, I fulfilled a promise to myself and to her, a promise to honestly and bravely share my life's most defining moments. My memoir is not just a recount of past events, but a message to my son, my grandchildren, and anyone who reads it. No matter the adversity, the human spirit is indomitable. Prologue. My patriotic journey began in 1955 when I found myself navigating the colorful and chaotic world of kindergarten at Emerson Elementary School. My early experiences were punctuated by the stern hand of my teacher, Ms. McGinnis, whose methods of discipline often left an indelible mark on my memory. As a 5-year-old with a penchant for mischief, I frequently found myself at the receiving end of her ruler, and countless trips to the principal's office became a regular part of my young life. In those formative years, lessons came wrapped in both punishment and praise, shaping my character in ways I would come to appreciate later. One particularly cold winter day, I vividly recall the anticipation swelling within me as I noticed the large clock ticking slowly toward our scheduled recess. My eagerness to be the first out the door led me to crawl toward the cloakroom, triggering laughter from my classmates and an inevitable reaction from Ms. McGinnis. The consequences of my antics that day were swift, and I found myself being escorted to the principal's office, feeling the weight of a wood paddle and the very real dread of what awaited me at home. As I trudged home, burdened by a note pinned to my coat and the knowledge of my impending punishment, I was unexpectedly rescued by my older brother. Spotting the note, he discreetly removed it and crumpled it into his pocket, shielding me from my parents' wrath. In that moment, he became my savior, turning a potentially disastrous day into one where I could escape the consequences of my actions, at least for the time being. My life took a transformative turn when Ms. McGinnis called upon me to recite the Pledge of Allegiance in front of the class. Standing tall with my hand over my heart, I felt an overwhelming sense of pride and honor as I recited the words flawlessly. The look of surprise on Ms. McGinnis's face was followed by her commendation, and from that day forward, she became a mentor to me. Under her guidance, I delved into the rich tapestry of American history, learning about the pioneers, patriots, and heroes whose sacrifices laid the foundation for our nation. This mentorship ignited my passion for storytelling and instilled a deep sense of patriotism in my heart. My mother, recognizing the importance of a holistic upbringing, enrolled me in a summer school program at Central Baptist Church. Here, I learned Bible lessons and sang uplifting hymns, further reinforcing the values she nurtured throughout my childhood. The culmination of this program was a memorable graduation procession where I was chosen to carry the American flag. The weight of that responsibility stirred emotions within me, igniting a passion that would guide my life's path, one committed to serving both God and my country with honor and gratitude. Even now, I can feel the stirring emotions that arise when I hear the Pledge of Allegiance or the national anthem. These moments evoke memories of my mother and Ms. McGinnis, two pivotal figures who taught me the true significance of patriotism and the importance of serving one's country. Their lessons have become the guiding principles of my life, influencing my choices and actions as I navigate through the complexities of adulthood. As I reflect on my journey, I am deeply grateful for the lessons learned during those early years. The mischievous child who crawled across the floor for a shot at recess grew into a person committed to family and service, shaped by the experiences of childhood and the mentors who dedicated their time to mold my character. In every endeavor I undertake, I carry with me the values instilled in me during those formative years, a commitment to honor, respect, and the fostering of American spirit. Chapter 1. The Hospital Room. The hospital room was barren, lit only by the fading light of a late August afternoon. I remember the beeping of machines, the only sound breaking the stillness surrounding me and my dying mother. The discomfort of sitting in the uncomfortable metal chair hurt my back as my eyes fixed on my mother lying in the hospital bed. She looked so frail, so unlike the strong and vibrant woman I had always known. Cancer had taken its toll on her, and I felt a pang of helplessness as I watched her struggle for every breath. I had spent hours at her bedside holding her hand, talking to her, and trying to keep her spirits up. But as the day passed by, hope began to fade. The doctors had given their prognosis, and it wasn't good. I couldn't bear the thought of losing my mother and the thought of a world without her in it. Sitting there lost in my thoughts, I noticed my mother stirring and opening her eyes. Her gaze was unfocused, and it was clear she was struggling to understand her surroundings. I leaned in closer, gently taking her hand in mine. "Mom, it's me, Danny," I said softly, hoping to bring her some comfort. Her eyes cleared for a moment, and a slight frown appeared on her face. I was expecting her final wishes, or for her to bid her farewells. I held my breath, waiting for her to speak. "Did you really kill people in Vietnam?" she murmured in her drug-induced haze. The medication that was supposed to soothe her pain seemed to fog up her mind, yet her words still pierced through me, sharp and unsettling. My forehead creased deeply in bewilderment. What exactly was she referring to? I had meticulously kept my Vietnam experiences to myself, never once opening up about the haunting nightmares that stalked my sleep. Sure, she was vaguely aware that I faced some challenges readjusting after coming home, but the topic of killing, that was a dark secret I held close to my chest. My mother's tone grew increasingly desperate, her eyes scouring my face as if looking for something hidden beneath my skin. "You don't have to bear this burden alone, Danny. You don't need to keep everything bottled up. You really need to seek help." A lump swelled in my throat, choking up my words. How on earth did she know? How could she possibly grasp the immense weight that I've been lugging around all these years? Sitting there facing her, her words clawed at me, and I noticed her slipping further into a state of confusion. Despite her delirium, her words struck a resonant chord within me, stirring a desperate yearning to be freed from the relentless demons of my past. I couldn't shake the memory of the day she was in tears just before I departed for Vietnam. I asked her what was wrong, and she admitted that she was worried about not just my physical safety, but also my spiritual well-being. At the time, I didn't fully grasp the depth of her concern for my soul. In an instant, her eyes opened with awareness, and a sense of realization washed over her expression. "I apologize, Danny." She spoke with a hint of sadness in her voice. "I know that you've been carrying a heavy weight, and I feel I haven't been there for you." With that, she closed her eyes and her breaths grew shallow. The hospital room was suffocating, and I felt overwhelmed with anxiety. I decided to take a short walk to clear my head and process what had just happened. As I strayed through the streets, each step felt heavier than the last. My mother's words weighed heavily on my mind, echoing ominously in the hollow night air. She had always been my confidant, yet there were parts of me, dark crevices of my past during the war, that I had shielded from her understanding eyes. The guilt of what I had seen and done during the war had haunted me for years, but I had always believed that I was protecting my family by keeping it all locked inside. The streets were dimly lit, and shadows danced along the pavement, mirroring the darkness that clung to my thoughts. As I wandered, the dark memories of the war flooded my mind. The faces of the people I had lost, the things I had witnessed, and the actions I had taken to survive all came rushing back with a vengeance. I had tried to bury it all, to move on and live a normal life, but my mother's words had torn open old wounds I thought had healed. Each memory was a sharp stab of guilt, a reminder of horrors I wished to forget but now confronted me as starkly as the cold night air. Overwhelmed by the intensity of my feelings, my steps unconsciously led me toward a familiar refuge, the childhood church merely 3 blocks away. Upon reaching the church, I barely noticed my surroundings, so caught up was I in the whirlwind of my own anxiety. Overwhelmed by my emotions, I instinctively found myself at the entrance, my hands trembling as they pushed against the heavy wooden doors. I ventured inside, almost desperate for a slice of peace or a whisper of solace. As the doors closed behind me with a dull thud, a wave of tranquility unexpectedly washed over me, soothing the raw edges of my nerves and pulling me towards the altar with an almost magnetic pull. In the hallowed sanctuary, surrounded by childhood memories and the echoes of countless prayers, I bared my soul. I knelt, my knees pressing into the cold, hard floor, and tried desperately to let go of the heavy burden I had been carrying for so long, the weight of my anxiety pressing down like a physical force. Silently seeking forgiveness, I found myself grappling with the pain and guilt that had clawed at my insides, unacknowledged and festering. It was then, in the dim light of the church, that I allowed myself to really feel, to acknowledge the agony and the hurt. I could almost see my mother, her presence as vivid as if she were sitting in one of the pews, her angelic voice uplifting in hymn. This vision, a remnant of happier times, brought both comfort and a piercing sadness. When I finally stood, the burden seemed less oppressive, as if the act of prayer had lifted some of the weight from my shoulders. My heart still thudded heavily as I left the church, but a kernel of hope had taken root. The night air no longer seemed as suffocating, but rather carried a hint of possibility. With a renewed determination, I quickened my pace back to the hospital, ready to face whatever awaited me. The uncertainty still lingered, but now it was tempered with a courage drawn from deep within, a courage to face my mother and ultimately myself. It felt like walking into a storm from which there might be no shelter. When I returned to the hospital room, the air seemed colder, heavier, as if the very atmosphere was laden with the impending finality of my mother's life. The sterile smell of antiseptic hung thickly, mingling with the faint scent of lavender from the bouquet I had brought her days earlier, now wilting slightly by her bedside. The dim light softened the edges of her frail figure, wrapped in the hospital's stark white sheets. I edged closer, my steps hesitant, filled with a turmoil of emotions at seeing her so diminished. I began, my voice a whisper amidst the quiet hum of medical equipment. Mom, I want to apologize for the worry and pain I have caused you. Each word seemed to pull from deep within my soul, a mixture of regret and pain. Mom, I know you never wanted me to join the Marines, and I can only imagine how difficult it was for you when I was serving in Vietnam. I have been carrying a heavy burden of guilt for the things I experienced and did during my time there, and I never wanted you to know about it. I'm sorry for keeping this from you and for causing you so much concern for my well-being. I hope you can forgive me and understand that I will work to move forward. I love you, and I am truly sorry. Her eyes remained shut, her breath shallow and labored, robbing me of any response I might have hoped for, a nod, a squeeze of hand, anything. The silence that followed swelled within the confines of the room, punctuated only by the occasional beep of the heart monitor. Out of nowhere, the doctor appeared at the doorway, his expression somber, eyes carrying a weight of unsaid words. He gestured for me to step into the hallway. With each step away from her bed, a sense of dread grew within me. The doctor's voice was low but clear. I'm afraid your mother's time is running out. It's nearing the stage to say our goodbyes. The finality of his words echoed painfully in my ears. When I asked for a timeline, he said it could be a matter of minutes or hours, leaving a heavy silence hanging between us. Returning to her side, I took her hand, now cold, gripping onto the fleeting warmth, the lifeline that connected us in these final moments. My mind raced with memories, my heart with apologies unspoken and words left unsaid, all converging in the quiet, heartbreaking rhythm of a goodbye. I felt numb, even though I had been anticipating this moment. In addition to dealing with the news, I knew I had to contact my two siblings who were far from the hospital. One brother lived in Kansas City, and the other was on vacation camping in the Rocky Mountains. Luckily, my brother on vacation had left me a message with his contact information in case of an emergency. I decided to call my brother in Kansas City first. As I dialed the number, I anxiously waited for him to pick up. When he finally answered, I struggled to find the right words. "Hey, it's me," I started, my voice trembling. I don't know how to say this, but Mom is dying. The doctors don't think she's going to make it through the night." My brother was silent for a moment before asking for more details. When I told him the doctor said it would be within hours, my brother promised to come to the hospital as soon as he could. Next, I called my oldest brother, who was vacationing in the Rocky Mountains. I was hesitant to interrupt their trip, but I knew they needed to know. When I got through, I could hear the sounds of nature in the background. "Hey, I have some bad news," I said, my voice breaking. She's not doing well. The doctors don't think she has much time left." We both knew it would be impossible for him to make it back in time. I felt a sense of relief when my brother from Kansas City made it to the hospital in time to be with our mother before she passed away. Her unconditional love for us was always evident, and I will always treasure her memory.